It's generally believed that the very first baseball card ever produced was in 1865. But you may be surprised to learn that the very first bird trading card set ever made is nearly as old, and that bird trading cards actually have a rich history and a modern day base of collectors. As a sports card content creator, this is not necessarily a topic I ever expected to make a video about, but once I learned about the fascinating history of bird trading cards, I thought it well worth sharing. Let's get into this. In the 1880s, the Church and Dwight Company of New York began producing bird trading cards and putting them in Arm & Hammer baking soda boxes. Church and Dwight was at the time and still is the parent company of Arm & Hammer, as well as a bunch of other companies. The first set was called Useful Birds of America, and they basically were created to try to spread knowledge about birds so that people would stop killing them for their meat and feathers, which was happening frequently at the time. Each card featured a short history of the type of bird pictured on the card. The series also included an additional 6-card set called Beautiful Birds. In 1904, Church and Dwight made another set of bird trading cards, and this was followed by 23 additional sets of cards over the next 72 years, all the way up until the last set was released in 1976. The cards had a collector base of children and were commonly collected among others with an interest in birds. Bird watchers in particular tended to be a large portion of the collector base, as they would use the cards as references to identify wild birds they would find when out bird watching. But Church and Dwight wasn't actually the only company to get involved in the bird trading card game. In 1889, Allen and Ginter released 2 different sets of 50 cards, one larger sized and one smaller sized, called Birds of the Tropics, that featured a bird painting as well as a cigarette advertisement on each card. In 1898, the Singer Sewing Machine Company produced a set of large-sized cards with life-size drawings of each bird's egg on them. And in Canada, the Red Rose Tea and Coffee Company of Montreal, in collaboration with the Canadian National Wildlife Federation, also produced some sets of bird cards between 1951 and 1955. And in modern days, Upper Deck has actually continued the tradition in the Goodwin Champions Feathered Features card, as well as the Allen and Ginter Birds of a Feather set. The Goodwin Champions set is actually how I first came to be aware of the existence of a collector base of bird cards. If you follow this channel, you know that I used to live in China. Well, last year at some point, I was looking through some previously sold trading cards from the Chinese trading card marketplace called Card Hobby, where I buy a lot of cards, as I sometimes do this to kind of get a sense for what kind of prices cards are selling at on the Chinese market. And when doing this, I was really surprised when I came across a bunch of Feathered Creatures cards that sold for quite high prices. I don't remember offhand now, but those particular ones I was looking at sold for something like $12 or $15 a piece, which for me, for a bird card, that seems like a lot. And since I can't imagine those $12 or $15 bird cards are something somebody is buying to try to flip elsewhere or something like that, it seems likely that they're just being bought by collectors, meaning that there is most likely a group of people who are buying them just for their personal collection. And then I went and looked on eBay, and I saw that indeed the Feathered Creatures cards sell pretty regularly. Not for any super high crazy prices, but frequently enough for me to see that there must still be a modern day collector base of bird cards. And actually, if you go out and search, you'll find people talking about their collection of bird cards, especially people who are bird watchers. And though I probably won't ever be one of those collectors, I actually think it's really cool that it exists as a niche trading card collecting hobby. And I like being able to connect to these different little niches in the hobby, because the hobby is wide.